There's this thing that happened to me when I finished reading Bunny by Mona Awad. 3 years ago, I was at the beach with my parents and I was on the last chapter of this book and I was flipping while everyone around me was relaxed. We got in the car. I was still not done reading the book. And we were on our way home and they were trying to talk. And I was just like, I can't. I need to be in this right now. Bunny by Mona Awad was a book that changed the way that I perceive nuanced and sneaky storytelling. She writes in a way that feels like you're in a dream. You're trapped in a dream. She is able to capture an essence of a person while still maintaining a mystery that actually never gets resolved, and then it haunts you. But last year, I think, Mona Awad released this called We Love You, Bunny, which I was super excited about, of course, because I loved Bunny, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so awesome. It's going to be like a sequel to Bunny. It's going to be crazy. And yeah, it was a pseudo sequel to Bunny, but I think that it drains the real magic and energy of this book away completely. I did not finish reading this. I DNF'd it. I purposefully did not want to finish it. Bunny follows this girl named Samantha Heather Mackey. She's in writing school. She's doing an MFA program in New Haven. And she's in this really small program with these other 4 girls who call each other Bunny. Kind of like the movie Heathers, which is a really popular movie. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. Actually, it's my number 2 favorite movie of all time because it's such a good movie. This book definitely draws from that. It all the marketing and everything. I remember when it was coming out, it drives itself by being similar to Heathers in that regard, where it's dark and comedic and it's dark comedy. And Samantha Heather Mackey basically gets absorbed into the world of the Heathers. Into the world of the bunnies, and becomes more and more and more unhinged. I don't want to say unhinged. I want to say more that's what it feels like. I'm going to do a little spoiler alert here because I am going to kind of talk about Bunny in a way that unlocks a lot of the details and secrets that I think make it fun. So if you haven't read it and you really want to read it, perhaps don't watch this. And the reason why this happens is because Samantha Heather Mackey, in my opinion, and the reason why I say in my opinion is this is where the whole nuance thing comes in. I think she's schizophrenic. The book doesn't explicitly tell you that she's schizophrenic, and I think that's what makes this so clever. If this book had been marketed as there's this schizophrenic girl who's a writer and she's gonna go through these crazy things with the girls and it's gonna be these cultish things and we don't know what's real and what's not, as opposed to just it's about these girls and it's about this girl who joins them, and then as you're reading the book you're realizing, oh, this is about a girl with schizophrenia. This is how I interpreted the story, and the reason why is because near the end there's a scene where Samantha's on a bus and there's an old woman next to her and she's reading a pamphlet that is on schizophrenia. And I think that's Mona Awad giving us and giving Samantha a hint on what's going on. It's like an answer. Samantha gets the answer and it doesn't land. And I think that's what makes this book so good, is that instead of her being like, oh my God, I'm schizophrenic, she doesn't fucking realize it, and she just keeps going, and we don't acknowledge it. It's just a moment, and she sees the schizo thing, and then she just keeps going, and the story keeps going, and this is near the end, so we're not really thinking about this, but it's Mona Awad being boop, just putting a little spotlight on that, and then leaving. The way the book ends, somebody I talked to told me that they didn't like that ending because it felt like it was but I don't think that they got exactly what the book was trying to say. She's talking to Jonah, who was her friend, acquaintance throughout school. I watch it float away into the shivering shade. You could come with me, I say to Jonah, if you want. I lower my gaze to the mud. Sure, Samantha, says the mud. I'd love to. She's schizophrenic. Jonah wasn't real. She was talking to the fucking mud. You're done with it and you're like, oh, What? You know, that's what makes it so great. Now we're going to get into We Love You, Bunny. And it makes it complicated. As a fan of Bunny, when this was announced, I was very excited. So I totally understand the excitement around it. I couldn't finish it because it was morphing my idea and my experience, really, of the original book. And what makes it so special here, we actually get to follow the bunnies. So the 4 girls, we get to follow the experiences or the events of the first book, but from their perspective. We are getting to sort of humanize / understand these characters that were not at all understandable in this book. And that was the whole point, was to make them sort of these dreamlike girls who had each their own distinct iconographies that make them so unique. And that's what made this book so good, is that you have 4 girls who call each other Bunny. They do have their own names, but they call each other Bunny. Really easy to picture them the same way, or this, you know, in the same regard, or almost as like twins, because they're the bunnies. You know, if Heathers was a book and it wasn't a well-written book, you would think the 3 Heathers look the same, but because you're watching the movie and the movie's so distinct, you know the Heathers are not the same, and the 3 of them are extremely different and extremely particular. And that is what these girls were coming off as in this book. They were coming off as, yes, there are 4 girls who call each other Bunny, and they're in this sort of cultish thing, but also there's more to them within the surreal nature of the book. It's pretty genius in that regard, because you're having depth while also being in the dark, but then having everything be logically explained, or at least explained by the bunnies. It doesn't work. Why would you have the girls who are making the mystery break the mystery in the second book and be like, you know, this is what was happening here, and this is what was happening here? And Mona Awad is great, of course, at writing, and she's great at crafting, and so it's not bad. Like, what I read wasn't technically bad. It's just that it was ruining my previous experience of Bunny as a book itself, because I was so attached to this creation and the way it was done, that this book felt like it was undoing that. This is a concept just could have just not happened, and we could have just spent time with a new story. Would have been great. There's also really something strange about them using "Oh, Bunny, you are so genius," the quote that Margaret Atwood said for the original book, for the first book, but they reused it and they plastered it on top of the newer one, because as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, Margaret Atwood read it again, because of course she loved the first one and she like endorsed it and she like promoted it and stuff. But then I realized, no, that's the same quote. They just reused it. And then I thought, why? Like, that's not right. She's not talking about this book, right? Like, it's the same thing. Yeah. Oh, Bunny, you are so genius! ! And it's the same thing. So, and you might say, well, it is Bunny. No, it's not the same book. So that frustrates me a little bit, because I'm just like, I'm holding a cash grab. Look, I don't care about each of the Heathers. That there's a reason why nobody has come out with a novel about each of the Heathers. Why nobody cares to truly understand why Heather, Duke, McNamara, and Chandler were being the way they were being in that moment, because everything that they were doing, truthfully, was surrounding the mechanisms of the story and what was going on. It wouldn't make sense outside of it, and it wouldn't make sense in another way, and that's why this doesn't work. However, I will always recommend to read this, because it is just such a riveting story, and it left me feeling just giddy and excited, and also confused and sad, and also a lot, just very thoughtful. It made me, I remember I was just very stunned when I was done with it, just stunned. And I think that's a great feeling.
Fuck me gently with a chainsaw. Do I look like Mother Teresa?